What up, good people? It is Kashya. Welcome to Now Naked and Unashamed. And today, what I would like to talk about is accountability and why I think it triggers most. Accountability and why I think it triggers most. Now, I'm going to be working on something as I have this conversation with y'all, so you'll see me looking down and messing, okay? So, if that distracts you, I apologize, but just have ears to hear me. Okay. So I think accountability is something as a community, as a nation, that is huge in this time and season that we're in, right? And for me, especially with how I have healed or grown through a lot of the things that have been sent my way to kind of break me down or discourage me, right? I've had to take accountability for me, right? Not what was being said about me, not what people may want to become of me, but I've had to take actual accountability for me. I've had to sit and look back at um, maybe what got me here. I also had to I'm constantly reflecting or looking at things. And when you are constantly reflecting, it's easier for you to be able to take accountability of things, right? But I think why accountability triggers a lot of people today is because it forces people to look inwardly, right? And society has been created and curated to where so much of our lives is outward. And what I mean by that is, well, let's take the internet, for example, right? When we're on the internet, we're not looking within, we're looking outwardly. And if you're a content creator or anything like that, which in this current season, most people are like content creators or something like that because they have told people that's now the new way to make your money, right? So most people have, started to become content creators or they're doing something in the online space, right? So because of that, our focus is now more so outward versus being inward, right? So when someone is like, oh, you need to take accountability, I think it's triggering for a lot of people because everybody has been programmed already to look outside of themselves for something, right? Like even when I sit and think about my usage of the internet, a lot of it is looking outward, right? I'm spending time looking or watching things that might or might not have a direct impact on my now, right? Like where I am now. And a lot of it, at least from my perspective of when I'm, you know, reflecting on my usage of the internet, a lot of it is just curiosity, right? And we know that oftentimes, curiosity is not the thing that we should always feed, right? We should at times starve curiosity because it is the thing that leads us to get into trouble, right? When you're curious about something, especially for too long, right, it could cause you to get into trouble. And because of that curiosity, sometimes you'll linger on a thing for too long and you don't need to do that, right? So you find yourself into things that you need not be in all because of curiosity. And so I think accountability is hard to actually process because we have too much access to other people's lives to criticize and judge, right? It's easier to judge and criticize what somebody else is doing versus really looking at ourselves and what we're doing, right? How we got there. Now, if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. My name is Kashya. Um, I'm often sitting in a public space when I record these videos, so there's always people possibly making noise or doing something in the background, right? Typically, when I come to places, for whatever reason, people like to elevate their voices eventually as I start to do stuff. It's kind of like my sports car fan club that I have. You'll probably hear about that more in another video, but either way, uh, yeah, I think accountability is triggering to a lot of people because it forces us to look in, and society has already set the tone for more people to be more focused on what's outside of themselves. And so I think accountability, even though we desperately need it, right? We see a lot of people now where maybe some of your favorites have done something, or there's been rumors of them doing something, right? And there's no true accountability, right? They're able to get off, or something transpires and the correct or proper justice is not had, right? It's more so a system based off of image. And I think that's another thing why accountability is sometimes triggering, right? Because a lot of people don't want to sit with the fact that maybe they have curated this image that's not really their true selves. And then will that kind of forces people to realize that they've built something false. They've been living a life that's been false or that's not true to who they really are, right? And sometimes that's very hard to deal with. There's a process of grief, there's denial. Um, there are a lot of different things that transpire when it comes to taking accountability of something, right? It's easier to say, no, that wasn't me, or, this person did XYZ, right? It's easier for us to always look outwardly and see clearly what someone else did, but it's hard for us to look at ourselves and be like, yeah, I did that, or yeah, whatever the case, whatever it is, right? Depending on what it is that you did. But I think that's why we as people today are sometimes triggered by accountability, right? Even this conversation might spark a response from somebody to be like, oh, but you haven't taken accountability for XYZ, because some people feel like in order for a person to take accountability has to look one way for everybody. And I think that's another issue sometimes with us as a people taking accountability for things, right? We're still on the mindset that it has to look the same all around. And sometimes it's not going to, because we are all different. We are all unique in our own ways. And so I could have taken accountability for something that somebody else might look at my life and be like, well, you haven't taken accountability for this. But they're not 100% sure if I've sat and digested and analyzed and criticized myself on whatever it is that they may think I haven't taken accountability on, right? Why? Because to them, it doesn't look a certain way for them to be like, okay, you've taken accountability. People are going to manipulate things. I've seen it. I've seen it, and people do it. People manipulate things to fit themselves or to fit their situation, right? And they'll manipulate it so much so because everybody wants to be the person that has the influence or whatever the thing may be that's trendy or popular or current, right? Or that's going to bring them views, right? Because people want to do things that are going to bring them the views, right? Everybody wants to be seen now, even if they're seen doing something silly or nonsensical, right? People don't care what they do as long as they get the visibility, and as long as they can say, I went viral, right? People don't care what they do. As long as people be like, oh, we see you do such and such, you were viral, blah blah blah. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I did that. Even if what they did they shouldn't have done. Like, even if what they did, they could have done something else, right? But showing their true selves or not performing because they want to be validated or approved, it's sometimes hard for people to do. And so I think that's why accountability is a trigger word for some people. Like no one wants to admit, yes, I did this or I could have done XYZ or whatever the case may be. I think accountability is just triggering because a lot of people, one, might not know how to do the work of admitting that they did something, and then two, being fearful of what that first step opens up, right? Like you might have to be accountable for something that opens up a floodgate to something that you were not yet ready to address. And I think that's the beautiful part of healing, or the beautiful part of being naked and unashamed, is that it allows you the freedom when you are at a space where you can take accountability for whatever it was, right? Yes, I did that. This is probably why I did that, or this is why I did that, right? Because sometimes you may have done something and you don't even know why you did it. Sometimes you did something and you know exactly why you did it, right? You did that on intentionally. You did it on purpose. Okay? So I think it's just the fear of what comes after the accountability, right? Now, does it mean that I have to change? Does it mean that I can't do that again? Does it mean that um, people are now going to see me in a different light because I had to admit to X, Y, and Z? And sometimes people are going to look at you in a different light. But guess what? That clears out space for the people who have the capacity to truly embrace your authentic self to show up in your life, right? And it clears out those who only love the performative version of you. And so I think that's why accountability triggers most people, right? They're afraid to accept the losses that sometimes come with it. And I think they're also um, nervous of what it's going to uncover by taking that first step. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. That's what I want to talk about, because we can't be naked and unashamed and then we're not able to take accountability for whatever it is going on in our lives, or whatever it is we're doing, whatever it is we might want to do, or that led to whatever in our past or in our present, right? Because in order for us to be naked and unashamed, we have to dig through what was to appreciate what now is, right? So let me know your thoughts on why you think accountability is triggering to people. I would love to hear them. And if you are a new subscriber, thank you so much. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you as well. If you know a friend that knows a friend that needs a friend, tell them to join our community. Okay, we need more followers. We need to get to 50 family members. Okay, 50 community members so I can go live. Okay, let's make that happen. Please. I said please. Okay, bye. Love you later.